What's up, everybody? It's Drewski. I'm taking over the podcast today, and it's something that I enjoy talking about. It's, loving yourself. So, you guys want to know what's wild? Most people think self-love comes after weight loss. But what people don't know is it actually doesn't. It comes before that, before you take that leap. So most people say, once I'm lean, once I'm confident, once I look how I want, then I'll love myself. But today, I want to talk about why that mindset is exactly what keeps people stuck. And it was something that I actually went through. And we'll get into that as well. People, you have to love yourself while you're dieting. You have to love yourself before, especially when you don't like what you actually see in the mirror. And that essentially goes for everything in regards to life, not just health and fitness. You need to love yourself because at the end of the day, loving yourself actually makes the most sense before doing anything. Because like me, you can go into it, we'll save that later. Let's talk about what I actually want to talk about, because if we're being real, dieting is uncomfortable. Looking at yourself, mid-journey, also uncomfortable. I mean, even just starting, most of you guys were uncomfortable to take that leap. I was essentially, and most of us were, and that even goes for going to the gym. I guarantee you felt really uncomfortable when you stepped into the gym for the first time, right? Because I know I damn did. I called the gym before I actually went to the gym and said, yo, I'm a 7th grader. I weigh 130 pounds. What should I be bench pressing? And the guy was like, yeah, about a plate, about 135. And I was like, I can't do that, If you don't understand the difference between self-love and self-hate, this process can take you to like a really dark place, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know that because I've lived it. And this is like what I wanted to talk about. Let me start here. A lot of people diet from a place of punishment. They essentially hate how they look. They hate how they feel. They hate their past choices. So diet becomes this sentence serving, no carbs, no joy, strict. I'm like, there's no mistakes I'm gonna make. This is what it is, and this is how it's going to be. Right? In my case, it started because somebody made fun of me and I said, F that, I am going to make a change and make them eat their words. But on the surface, it might look disciplined. But underneath, it's actually self-destruction disguised as essentially motivation. And it's a tough thing to like think about because you think, someone told you something mean or you hate the way you look, so you want to change it so nothing matters besides, what you're doing at this moment. No carbs, no, you're trying to be David Goggins, but you reach the goal, then what? Self-love doesn't mean you're okay staying the same. It means you respect yourself enough to take care of your body without tearing yourself down at the end of the day. You don't punish things you care about, you protect them. And that's something that I've developed and learned over time. I was very implosive, very explosive. I couldn't take this critique, criticism. Andrew knew everything. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. And there's a difference between, those two things is torturing yourself and discipline. Because to you may think sacrificing all the necessary things that used to be fun to you is just you transforming into the new you, and stop. So let's talk about the mirror. When you look at yourself in the mirror, especially because you started this journey, you obviously do not like yourself, which in a way is terrible. God made you who you are. You should not hate yourself. And if you don't believe in God, you were put on this earth the way you were. The only thing you can do is not necessarily fix it, but you can look in the mirror and go, okay, there's work that needs to be done, but you shouldn't hate yourself. Most people don't look in the mirror to gather information. They look in the mirror to judge themselves. They're looking for proof that they're failing or essentially looking for permission to quit. And that's most people. But the mirror isn't a judge. It's not a verdict. It's essentially like a progress report. And it's kind of like what that goes hand in hand with what I just said. You look at yourself and you're not supposed to hate yourself. You should go like, I'm a beautiful piece of art. I can work on my shoulders a little bit. or, I could lose the love handles, but you can't be so detrimental. You have one life. Love yourself. It shows you where you are, but where you're not supposed to be if you're not necessarily happy with yourself at the end of the day. And here's the truth a lot of people don't want to hear. You can't improve what you hate, no matter what, man. And trust me, because you can grind through it. You can definitely grind through it, and you can essentially do what I did. I fucking, excuse my language, sorry. I went through hell and back for a year to prove a point. I grinded through nonsense, through a bad relationship, through self-torture and just everything. You can't imagine. But I had one mission. And let me tell you, when I reached that mission, I absolutely didn't know what to do anymore. So what I want to say is long-term change comes with respect and not disgust. I want to be really honest here. I've been talking about my story, and just to put it out there, I lost 120 pounds, and I didn't do it out of self-love. I strictly did it out of hate. Someone made fun of me. Someone made me feel small. It made me feel embarrassed about my own body, my ego, my pride. Everything was hurt for the first time in my life, and that lit the fire. That became the fuel to get me up early, got me in the gym, say no to food that I loved before, and it was really bad food. I really missed triple meats, I'm not gonna lie. But, it really turned me into something like just a machine with a mission. And for a while it worked. The weight came off. I got popular on TikTok because of my videos I was posting. I was just a unit, man. I was 280 pounds. I was around 15% body fat. I felt amazing. The other person was eating their words, and I was just him at the end of the day. People noticed, the compliments were coming in. Obviously, my TikTok was taking off, but here's what nobody talks about. I reached the goal that I essentially wanted, and that was built on hate. But then the hate disappears because I already proved the point. And so does that fire. I hit my goal. I got everything I ever wanted. And then suddenly there was nothing left driving me. I got comfortable. My ego just shot through the roof. I started doing things to, make up for a shitty diet, I wasn't proving anyone wrong anymore. And because I never built the self-love along the way, I had no identity behind the grind anymore. And that's when things got really dark for me, because I necessarily didn't have a path or I guess you could say a guide anymore to what I was doing. I didn't know how to continue performing without the pain. I didn't know how to maintain without anger. I didn't know how to keep going without someone to fight against. And that's essentially when I spiraled. And that's most of the time when people spiral. That's when people rebound, and that's when people sabotage everything that they built, because there's just no fuel anymore. It's like a car. You can't make a car move if there's no fuel in it. And it's not because you're weak, but because you were running on nothing. You were running on E for the longest time, but you thought you knew your car, like most of us do, and well, turns out you didn't. And here's the part I really want you to hear. Dieting from hate always backfires eventually, because when you hate yourself, one bad meal turns into a binge because you just feel like an absolute POS. One missed workout turns into, what's the point of this? I already screwed up. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I am this. Maybe I'm that. One mistake becomes, proof you're a failure. But when you diet from self-love, one bad meal is just feedback. One missed workout is just life. You adjust instead of quitting. Self-love keeps you consistent when motivation disappears. And when motivation disappears, because it will, because usually that's when people start, is motivation. It's going to go away. You're an adult. You have other things that happen in life. Another thing no one prepares you for is phases. Not every phase is confident. Not every phase is lean. Not every phase feels good. You know, there's going to be phases where you're holding more water, where you feel bulky, you know, where you don't feel the absolute best. And it literally could be within 24 hours. And trust me, I've been through it. Phases where clothes don't fit right, you know, and it sucks. But at the end of the day, this is what you signed up for. And that's why I preach. If you're hunting, enjoy the hunt. Because once you kill the prey, once you hunt and you kill what you've been looking for, it goes away. But is that all you're going to be able to tell people? No. What you should be happy about is, man, the journey that built me to get to the point where I got to, you know, hunt this animal. We went through here, we tracked it here. All those small little things are memories that you can look back on and go, man, I worked my tail off to kill this animal. I worked my tail off for months, for a year straight, and now I've lost X amount of pounds. Now I fit in this bikini. Now I can go to the beach without a shirt. Self-love says the phase is temporary. This body is a part of my process. This discomfort can't define me. Growth requires tolerance, not disgust. You don't need to love how you look today to love yourself today. One of the biggest lies in fitness is I'll love myself when I get there. When I lose 20 pounds, when I see abs, when I finally feel confident. And it's bullshit. Excuse my language once again. But if you wait until the finish line is to love yourself, you're training your brain to withhold worth. And like I said, you know, I'm coming to you with a first-hand experience because, oh man, I've been through so many ups and downs the past 4 years. Self-love isn't the reward at the end. It's the reason you can stay consistent in the middle. You don't earn self-love by losing weight. You know, I wish you guys can just see my mind because, you know, I've been heavy, I've been skinny, I've been this, I've been that. And, you know, and I couldn't really figure out why, you know, I was bouncing up and down off the wall. My weight loss is going up and then it would go down. And then I wasn't happy when it was down because I missed being big and I missed this and I missed the vein and I missed that. And I couldn't figure out why. And I would put not only myself under stress, but other people as well because I didn't like my fucking self. Excuse my language once again. You know? You're only going to lose that weight because you believe you're worth the effort. You know, you're only going to get stronger because you believe you can. Let me kind of like leave you with this before I continue talking in this tangent. You know, talk to yourself the way you would talk to your mom, your dad, your best friend, your daughter, your son, someone you love. Would you shame them? Probably not. You wouldn't call them lazy. You wouldn't say they're POS. You wouldn't tell them they're broken because they messed up once, you know? So why do you do it to yourself? And that's something I've realized not only with health and fitness, but, you know, to the person that I love. You know, why am I going to yell at her or get mad at her because, you know, she has a different opinion than I do on something? You know, it's a lot of self-reflection and a lot of maturity here, not only for the health and fitness world, but also, you know, your life as well. You know, the relationship you have with yourself sets the ceiling for your results. And trust me, like I've said, I've been on both sides. Hate can start the fucking fire. I'm not going to excuse myself from cussing there because it can. And trust me, that fire is fucking hot. But love is what keeps it burning without destroying you. So today, if you're dieting, if you're struggling, if you don't love what you see in the mirror yet, I want you to love yourself enough to keep going. Not because you finished, but because you're becoming. You are a piece of art that is not completed yet. You are becoming the person you want to be. And if any of you have any types of issues where you are self-destructing, struggling internally, and you don't know what to do, you're scared to come to Forrest or Alexis because, obviously they're your coaches, come to me. Come to Spencer. And one thing I can relate with Spencer, aside from Alexis and Forrest, is our transformations came with a lot of hate, came with a lot of ups and downs, but at the end of the day, we're still here and we got through it. So that's what I got to say today. I'm Drewski. Peace.